Flipping it up and out. Bogues! A reason blocked by Bogut.
Good recovery by Andrew Bogut.
Let's get rogue.
Welcome to Rogue Bogues. This is the basketball series. Thanks for joining us. Pro, how goes it?
Folks, first off, we have to address the elephant in the room, and I'm not talking about me for once. You got to address what happened. The fucking sound guy's been taking shit left and right about not having the show. I mean, I'm getting killed about Doritos bags fucking crackling in the background. You got to address it. You got to, as the CEO of Rogue Bogues, you've got to protect your people. You got to address it. And let's just fucking address it for the first 30 seconds. Because I'm the sound guy is taking a pounding, and not in a good way either. So we gotta address it.
It's on the run sheet. So I have two indiscretions we need to go through. I'll get to the second one, obviously second, but the transmission problem last week, Pro. So my podcast equipment has a micro SD card. For those of you who don't know, it's a very tiny, storage card essentially. Did not realize they are that delicate. And when I went to, take it out from where I have it stored to put it back in, I kind of scuffed or maybe put a little cut through the actual part of the chip that obviously is being read. So put that in, machine's not reading it. I'm like, oh shit, here we go. So as I've put it in, it has a mechanism that, it's an inject-eject thing. So if you push it in, it clicks it in, and then you push it to have it stick its kind of a side of it out so you can pull it out again, right? So that's an important part of the story. Anyway, so Pro, that day, we both agreed to start a bit later. Pro would text me, I'll be ready in about 15 to 20. So I get home and I'm like, oh shit, it's not working. 15 to 20 minutes. Office Works is 8 minutes from my house, right? So I'm like, I can make it to Office Works and back and still be on time. So I did, rushed my ass to Office Works. Let me get one of those micro SD cards. No worries, we've got it. Bang. I come back. I get it out of the packet and I go to put it in, not working, right? Still not working. So now I'm like, I thought, this is what I'm thinking. When I cut the package of this new SD card, I'm like, I must have scuffed it with the scissors. Because it's like, the cards are really small and they're in this little sealable bag, so you have to cut around it. I bet you I've cut it now. So I'm like, what an idiot. Like, I've cut this micro SD card. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going through this shit again. So I just said, Pro, let's just can it for this week. We'll do it next week. Anyhow, I go now a second time to Office Works a day or two later to prepare for this following week. I buy 2 micro SD cards this time, just in case I cut it wrongly again. I put this shit in the podcast and realized that it's the actual machine that's fucked up because of that mechanism. Now it's not loading the SD card. So I threw the brand new one that I bought on the day. I threw that out because I thought it was screwed up. And then now I figured it's my actual podcast machine. So I found one locally, got a brand new one. We're all good now, but absolute shenanigans to just, go through it. Big fingers, big hands, big strong man like myself, and micro SD cards, Pro, not a very good mix.
Jeez, Bogues, I think we're getting fucking sabotaged. I think somebody's got it out for you, brother. It might be one of the 500 people you go at on a monthly basis online.
Yeah, maybe.
They might be working for the Geek Squad.
Office Works, yeah. It might be at Office Works, but it just tells you how delicate this shit is. So haven't really had any issues really beyond that. And that was, it just pissed me off because I drove. I thought I had it all set. Oh, crisis averted. Pro wouldn't even notice. And then bang, still didn't work. So moving on from that, one more indiscretion. 2 weeks ago when we did our end of year Aussie Player of the Year or our Aussie Watch, we failed to include. Who did we fail to include, Pro? Let me know. You remember?
Did we talk about Ingles?
Someone. That's the one, Joe Ingles. So I get a text from Joey saying,
that fucking asshole never texts me anymore.
No,
it's been about 3 fucking years.
He's Houdini'd it for the most part, but he texts me and goes, listen to the podcast and really enjoyed the Aussie, being sarcastic, the Aussie Watch segment.
Yeah.
Don't know if I'll tune in anymore after that, sarcastically. And I just said, well, you said you were going to come on the pod about 18 months ago and you still haven't, so we just put a line through your name. We're not talking about you. But that was a joke, a bit of banter. But yes, we did forget Joe Ingles on the run sheet. So it actually was on the page, but I skipped over it, glazed over it, and we'll give those stats now because, we screw up from time to time, Pro. That's 2 screw-ups we've admitted to. And Joe Ingles, here you go, 22 minutes a game this season, 6.9 points, 2.8 rebounds, 3.3 assists. Back to his beautiful 40% from 3. So we apologise to Joe Ingles. You still owe us some time on the podcast in the future, but we gotta admit our mistakes, Pro. That's life.
Yeah, don't worry about it. The Hall of Fame is definitely calling out for those numbers that we missed out on. So, the Aussie Watch Hall of Fame, he's still in the in the running for it. Where we gotta go back and vote on it. But yeah, don't worry about it. And plus, my DM is still the same. Just so we know, he was. We were best buddies about 3 years ago. I must have said something that pissed him off because I haven't heard from him since.
No, I think he's got off socials, I believe. I'll have to double check, but I know he deleted his Instagram, and I think he deleted his Twitter. So I think he, I mentioned this, months ago. I think he was knuckling down in the rehab and gone through some grueling days. So I think he wanted less distractions. And he disappeared on all of us for a while. All of us were like, Joe, you all right, man? Like, where'd you go? And I think he changed his number. And we finally got a hold of him, and all is okay now. He's back on the court and in a better mental state. But those 12-month rehabs, Pro, as you know, you've been around players, they can be pretty daunting, especially when it's really his first long-term injury, I believe, where he's been out for more than a month or two. So he was dealing with that. But yeah, apologies to Joe Ingles. I've got your numbers out there now. Stop breaking our nuts. Onto the playoffs, Pro. Don't know how much of these you've been watching, but we're going to start with the Warriors Sacramento Kings series. Now, I had our run sheet prepared last week. I'm going to give the pick of what I thought it would be, and I'm not lying about these. And I'm going to give where I think it's going to end up. So for the Warriors Sac series, I had 4-2 pre this series for the Warriors. Mm-hmm. I was in, I was shooting myself when it was 2-0 for those picks, going back to Golden State. But the game was early this morning, Australian time, and earlier in the morning for you, earlier in the day for you over there in the US, and it's 2-2. This has been a fantastic series. I think this has been almost conference finals liked, in my opinion. Series of adjustments, back and forth. The Draymond Green suspension. My wife and I were speaking, and my wife's like, I bet you they're going to win game 3. And I'm like, I think they will too. My wife said they're going to win by double digits, and she was right. So maybe we should get her on the pod. I was like, it won't be double digits. It'll be close, but they'll win. And Looney was huge in that game, filled that role. You go into game 4. Draymond comes off the bench, which was big. I think it was really, really good. Kept their balance in the starting lineup a little bit of the same as game 3. Draymond Green on Fox in the second half was big. Now look, Fox still had his numbers, but even that last play of the game, Draymond's in the spot that De'Aaron Fox wants to get to shoot that mid-range. He's on the elbow. They make him throw it to Harrison. Look, if Harrison knocks the 3 down, we'll have a different conversation. But he took that gamble after they switched off. I think Draymond was really good on Fox, just brought a different diet of stuff. I think Draymond played more the IQ game rather than just trying to get up and in. I have concerns about De'Aaron Fox, Pro. I think he looked very gassed towards the end of that game in game 4. Let's not forget, for portions of these games in the series, he's not getting a break defensively. He's chasing Steph Curry, and that's going to have a toll, I think, in a 7-game series. I think his legs have to give. When he's the only guy that's really been that aggressive for him offensively, scoring 38 today, he's getting them buckets. It's very hard to do that when you have to go to the other end and chase a Klay Thompson or a Steph Curry, and I think that's starting to show a little bit now in this series. Some crazy stuff. The physical series, the Draymond suspension, Sabonis and him going at it. The referees, I think, have done a great job in this series for the most part. They've let the teams play. Even in the rebounding battles, they haven't caught a lot of the ticky-tacky stuff. They probably let too much go, to be honest, at times, and that's why some frustrations boiled over. And even today, you see some crazy stuff. Steph calling a timeout without a timeout left, getting a technical foul, almost costing them the game, but they squeak it out. So a lot to like in this series, a lot of drama. Question comes, Pro, can the Warriors win a game on the road?
Well, Bogues, I guess you got to go with, what they did all season with this. They haven't really, when has the Golden State Warriors really shown all year on a consistent basis that we're a dominating team? Not a dominating team, number 1 in the league or anything, but just a high-level team like that. they haven't really shown it consistently, and it does bother. It does sort of. If I was a Warriors fan, I'd probably be worried about it for sure. Winning on the road has been a problem all year, one reason or another. It's been a great series. It's been a back and forth. Like you said, it's been physical. It's had a lot of drama to it. But yeah, I mean, winning on the road has been a big problem for them, and sustaining anything. And if they want to do anything, they're going to have to win road games, and they're going to have to break serve. I mean, sooner than later. Well, definitely sooner than later. You want to get this one, the next one. I think this one's going to tell the series. If they can't win this one, I think it's going to be hard for them to close them out. Win, go back to Golden State. They'll probably win that one, but then being able to close, in another game and trying to beat Sacramento on the road, it's going to be tough. Now, one would say experience. Golden State has it. Sacramento hasn't been through that as a team yet. I get all that, but man, like, when are they going to win on the road? That's a huge question for me.
I think it's going to be this series, bro. I do. I think the tightening of the buttocks is going to start for the Kings. They haven't been here before. They haven't been through the grueling ups and downs of a series, the momentum shifts. We're starting to see a few of the Kings disappear that had some influence during the regular season. Sabonis hasn't had a great couple of games. Harrison Barnes has been struggling the last couple of games. So I think that's what's going to play. And I think the Warriors will get 5 or 7, one or the other. I think it's going to be 5. I think it's still going to go 4-2. I think the momentum shifted. And I think once the Warriors get a sniff of something working, the Draymond Green on Fox, the Draymond Green off the bench, different lineups, they really, really go well with that. So I could be wrong. Could go Sacramento, 4-2 for all I know. But I'm sticking with the champs because they've been in this situation. Don't forget, Wiggins was out for 2 odd months towards the end, so that obviously hurt their road record too. I think the acquisition of GP, Gary Payton II, has been huge for him as well defensively, and I think they're starting to get back into that flow of that little run they made last season in the playoffs. So I think they're going to go 4-2. But what else have you seen in this series that stands out for you? Have you seen anything else other than what we've noted?
Bogues, I do like the maturity of Fox. I think him playing as well as he's had, all series, averaging 29 and 8, for the most part throughout the series. I think that he's been good to watch. Malik Monk's been great to watch. Obviously Steph, just being Steph. I mean, 30, averaging over 30 for the series, and Andrew Wiggins getting his legs back. Looney's been unbelievable with defense, rebounding, screen setting, great role play for him for sure. So I really enjoyed watching those things of the games. I like the back and forth. I think that these guys are going at each other. It's been great to see. It's great to see Harrison Barnes having a good series as well. I wouldn't say Sabonis is Randall-like as far as not really bringing it in the playoffs yet, but he's been a little bit up and down. Draymond, I didn't watch early game. I watched late game, and it seemed like Draymond thought he got hit a couple of times. Didn't have any antics towards the referees, just sort of gave him a little stare and a little, hey, I got hit. And I like to see that versus the antics and the Steve Austin, showing the ears like he's Hulk Hogan or something back in the 80s and doing all that stuff. I don't mind when players go at referees a little bit, but I just, I like just the sort of the hard play, give them a little talk, say, hey, I got hit, whatever, and then just go back. And I sort of like that, but I do enjoy, this is probably the second best series going. I really enjoyed the Phoenix LA Clippers series. But this series has been really, really fun and entertaining to watch.
Yeah, it has. This has been a great series, and I think your point to Draymond, he's once bitten, twice shy. I think now with the suspension and everything going on, I don't think he can afford to be suspended again and to go through that. So it's good that he's toned it back because they definitely need him out there. We'll get on to Denver, Minnesota's going on as we speak. It's 29 apiece, start of the second quarter, but 3-0. Had this one as 4-1. It's currently 3-0. Jokic domination so far. I mean, he's 20, 11 and 9 a night in this series. He's 25 for 44 fought from the field, just letting the game come to him. And that's what you love to see with the caliber of star that he is. He's never really pressing for his numbers. They just somewhat naturally come. I think Aaron Gordon's taken a big step this season for them. I think he's the X factor for them and their aspirations to, get to a conference finals or a finals. I think he's probably the piece that they haven't had in that current form the last couple of seasons. I think he's grown a lot this season, and his energy and cutting and everything he's doing, even his three ball's not as bad as it once was. But yeah, the Wolves just have no answer for Jokic in this series. And you might look at 2011-9 as nothing, but just the pace and the tempo of the offense, Jokic is getting them buckets when he needs to. Once again, I feel like, I know Towns and Gobert hasn't been the greatest fit, but I feel like, Towns in these tough physical playoff series historically, he just ends up floating to the perimeter a lot. And I know he won the 3-point contest, and that might be a curse somewhat, Pro. I don't know what your thoughts are, but when you're playing the 4 and you're Towns, he can just, I know the spacing's not as good, but put Rudy Gobert in the opposite side short corner, or the dunker as you call it, and get Towns on the block a little bit or at the elbow, and just have him just big boy those 4 men. They're putting 4 men like a Gordon or a Jeff Green that have no business guarding him on the block, but he has that tendency to float and just get frustrated at times and stand in the corner, or just stand on the 45 and hoist up threes. So I know he's had an active effort at the start of this game to get to the bucket, and they needed that from day dot. But this has been a reoccurring issue for Towns in playoff series.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously we're not there every day, so we don't know if that's their philosophy of, look, we want to get away from post play regardless. I mean, he's always been a load down there to deal with. But yeah, I've noticed the last year or two, this season, last season, that he's really floated out to that 3-point line, that perimeter play. And I don't know if it's I don't know if it's just sort of peer pressure about where the league's going, where these other 4 men are playing, listening to people that he shouldn't be listening to. But I always tell players, hey, look, go to your skill that's going to really impact the game. And the way he impacts the game is post play. He's got great feet. He's got great touch. It's a good face-up game. He can get to the basket. He's really crafty. He's really smart. But, yeah, I don't give a fuck about 3-point contests or not. The guy's not a fucking guy that I want to pay money to just to drift outside. What are you going to do? He's not like a poor man's Sam Perkins, for God's sakes. He's like a poor man's Anthony Perkins from out there. Just fuck that. Like, get to, especially when they switch. Everybody switches these days. 1-5 pick and roll, 1-4 pick and roll, whatever. Just throw it to him and get it to the block, get to the free throw line, get some energy that way. Really, put Denver in a tough situation. And,
he started today.
Really
he's 2 for 2 from the field, 4 for 5 from the line. He's got 8 points at the start of the second quarter. So he's made an effort to try and attack more. Maybe they've had a word to him, but it is noticeable. And you look at, game 1, 1 for 7 from 3, game 2, 2 for 5, game 3, 2 for 4. So look, not horrible in the last 2 games, but I think the feet said wide open ones I got no issue with, transition or out of a pick and roll. But I think at times he does float, and they need him to be a dominating force. They got Edwards on the perimeter. They got Rudy defensively, but Towns is kind of that anomaly that's like, hey, we need you to give us 25 a night and dominate those mismatches, like you said, Pro, especially with teams switching. And if they do switch and you don't get a touch, crash the board, get some O boards. That's the thing. He's tending to just float on that perimeter. But this series, we know Minnesota coming through the play-in, probably they deserve to be there in the first place. Who knows? But this is always going to be a somewhat domination by Denver. And it's looking that way. I mean, it'll probably, if Minnesota get this one, it probably goes back to Denver and goes 4-1. We're probably right on our predictions. But hasn't been the most fun series to watch. It's been kind of grindy at times. No. It does stagnate from time to time. And then a switch flicks and then no one plays defense for a 5-minute stretch. And I think that's one thing I noted with Denver. They have these lulls defensively. I think Mike Malone's spoken about it. I've seen him talk about the fact that, we just have lapses of 4 or 5 minutes where we just don't guard. And he did one of those halftime interviews and they're asking him about what do you need to do to play, to play better defense. And he's like, we need to defend, and he's got a point. And that's one thing that concerns with Denver. They get in that up and down pace of moving the ball, and it's kind of relaxing, and they're not threatened, and then they kind of bring that defensively a little bit for stretches. But when they're locked in defensively and playing hard, and they're tough to beat. But that's the only concern I have for them next round and the round after. Not right now against Minnesota, though. I think this series is pretty much a wrap.
Yeah, you're right. And I think, it's funny. I think advancing throughout the playoffs, Bogues, they're going to have issues on both ends. Defensively, look, Jokic doesn't guard, Porter doesn't guard, Murray's an okay defender. Caldwell Pope, I think, is a really solid team defender. Gordon, obviously, is probably their stopper. Bruce Brown really plays well defensively off the bench. Jeff Green gives him a little bit, and then DeAndre Jordan. Haven't really paid attention to this series. I don't know if he's even playing, but that's where their issue will lie. And they need someone else besides Jokic that could flat out take over games offensively. And, because, they're going to try, teams are going to do their damnedest, especially, later rounds to really take the ball out of Jokic's hands or his effectiveness and, forcing the pass out of double teams, which it's obviously not a problem, but other players are going to really have to step up. If that's a Porter Jr. or, a Gordon, definitely Murray. Murray's the scorer. A guy that obviously is, brings it on a nightly basis, but, throughout the later rounds in the playoffs, this is where they struggled in the past, finding that other guy that's really going to take over games. So that's going to be an interesting one, Bogues. And, obviously they play great as a team. They're very well coached. Jokic is great, and they've got a lot of good supporting pieces around him. I really enjoy watching Gordon play. I agree with you. I think he's really stepped his game up. Really embracing that role as a guy who could guard, guy who could make an open shot, straight line drive you, and make things tough. Porter, really just got to try to be consistent throughout series and do things. And Murray's going to have to be that second guy. Their bench has been, solid, for the most part. I really like Bruce Brown. I think Jeff Green at times can give you some energy. Reggie Jackson does his thing, but it'll be interesting going forward.
It will be. That one, I think, will stay 4-0 or 4-1. Moving on to Memphis and the Lakers. A lot of people had this as an upset series. I was still siding with 4-3 for Memphis. I thought this had every chance to go 7 games pre the series, and that was until Dylan Brooks wakes up the retirement home in Los Angeles. And, what are you doing? It's currently 2-1. We've got another game in LA. It could potentially go 3-1, could go 2-2. I think it's still going to – I'll still say 4-3 Memphis, barely. And that's not a compliment to Memphis. They should plow through this series considering how bad the Lakers were coming into the playoffs. They had a good month, yes, but Memphis is deep in a lot of positions. They got a better bench. But, Brooks, what are you doing? I get antics and I get physicality, but – this series, you don't need to give this old locker room they have over there of guys that are somewhat coast through games. It's been a problem for the Lakers. Give LeBron, one of the best players, not just of today, but going down as one of the best players of all time, some added motivation. And just with, for those not familiar, he had a press conference after a game saying, LeBron's old, I couldn't care about him, blah, 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 go at everyone. If I'm his teammate at some point, bro, I'm going to him, hey, man, chill the fuck out, dude. LeBron James is already a killer. We don't need to have him come in motivated. Just, compliment him, tell him how great he is before the games, play that psychological game. And they've been punished for it. They're down 2-1, bro. And then you factor in the Moran injury early in the series. He's back. He's banged up. The way he plays now maybe changes a little bit with getting hurt early in the series. So, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers won this, to be honest with you. I've been on the bandwagon of Memphis of frontrunners. I don't believe in them in a 7-game series, but I think they should still get through a Lakers, pro. That's my point.
Yeah, Bogues, look, this is what the league is, right? It's WWF, interviews, saying crazy stuff, all about me, the individualism of the NBA as far as look at me, look at me, look at me. Brooks is very Deshaun Steven-ish. When Deshaun Stevenson did that to LeBron early on in his career, and then Lance Stevenson doing it to LeBron as well. The one thing about LeBron, you could say what you want about him, some of the antics off the court I'm not a huge fan of as far as way he carries himself sometimes and acts. Two things that I respect of him, the guy never gets in trouble off the court, does whatever. So he never really plays into the antics. He just sort of plays his game, does his thing. I don't know if this wakes him up, not wakes him up, whatever. But, Dylan Brooks, for all the shit he talks, guy can't shoot, can't make a shot, not a scorer, and it's not like he's a lockdown defender. Like, he's physical and tough at times for sure, but like, back it up. This goes to show you how overrated the Memphis is. Look, it's one thing about catching a team, winning a couple of rounds in the playoffs, and actually doing this consistently. And the two guys that got to really step their game up are Desmond Bane and Dylan Brooks. Those guys, if they want any shot at this, I thought they were going to win. I had them at 4-2, but if they want any chance, those two guys got to step up. Jaren Jackson is doing his best. He didn't have a great game, in my opinion, last night, but those two guys really have to step up. Desmond Bane and Brooks have to make shots. They got to get to the basket. They got to give John Morant help. They don't have Steven Adams. They're missing Brandon Clark as well. Like, they're missing some guys. Aldama, Asante Aldama. He's played all right, made a couple of shots here and there. But like, those guys got to step up. And the whole antics thing with Brooks, look, that's what the league is, Bogues. It's all shit talking, taunting, antics. And now people get upset when he slaps fucking LeBron James in the nuts. Like, you allowed this guy to do this shit all year. Same thing with the Draymond thing. Same thing with whoever else is into antics. Like, you allow this shit all year. Why is everyone surprised when it goes like this? Brooks doesn't know any better. He's Captain Shtick. That's what he is. He's Captain fucking Shtick. This is his personality. He's not a very good basketball player. He's an above average NBA player, that gives you energy, that could score a little bit, but he's non-efficient, can't make a shot, doesn't really do anything great. So he needs to do this stuff. He's sort of hanging on to that. He's a decent player, but he's nothing great, but he's got to try the antics. And again, it gives him press. It gives him,
I get that. I get it on the court, like trying to bring energy and be physical and nitty gritty, but like, you go to the media, you're going to lose that battle against LeBron every day of the week. Number one, like, you're just going to, and then now you're putting more pressure on yourself. You put a microscope on yourself where they're going to be looking at every little thing you do now. Oh, you were 3 for 10 from three. Oh, you had 4 turnovers. Like you said, like, you're not that guy. So it's like, you've almost put a spotlight on yourself when you're not a great player anyway. You're a solid average player. You bring a lot of energy. You're a great piece in that team, but you're not. They can not play you and still be okay, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, the Lakers can't do that with LeBron, right now in a playoff series. So my whole thing is just don't prod the old poke the bear, whatever. But I feel like the Lakers need a reason to get up for games, even in a bloody playoff series. They're that mentality of. They've got a lot of coasters, right? They've got a lot of like, oh, now you want to threaten us now? Oh, we'll show you. But if you don't threaten them, you probably slide through and win. Like, and now you've just woken them up. Like I said, it's just stupidity, I think, on Brooks's part. Then all the outfits and all the antics. It's like, dude, like, you're playing in Memphis. You're not in LA. You're not Hollywood. Just chill out, man. Like, I respect how you play to an extent because you play hard. But I just can't. I've lost all respect for that guy just on a day-to-day basis.
Oh, no doubt. And on the other end, did you see that when they interviewed D'Angelo Russell and they called him a point guard and he freaked out?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so like I don't know why. Like the reporter was just in the at his locker or whatever, and he goes like as a point guard, and he interrupted him right away. He goes, "Why do you have to say that? I'm a basketball player. Like he said it like 5 times. I'm a basketball player. Like the guy made fun of his family or something, calling him a point guard. Like
why?
This world.
Why is he offended?
I have no fucking idea. This world is completely fucked, folks. It's completely fucking.
It was like
insane.
the KG thing. Remember when people used to call KG 7 foot? He used to get mad. It's like I'm 6'11". Yeah. It's like, like what? I think part of that for him was marketing because it's hard to market 7 footers. But being called a point guard on a great team or a good team, not the end of the world. Maybe he's offended because I'm a scorer. I'm not a point guard pro.
It's unbelievable, Bogues.
That is quite hilarious. Sign of our time.
It's just a fucking.
Don't label me, bro.
World is just soft.
Don't label me with a position that I play. How dare you? How dare you call Rudy Gobert a center? He could identify as a forward. He could identify as something different.
You can't.
He could identify as a 3-point shooter.
Well, you can't call Rudy a post player because he doesn't have any post moves Guy makes 150 million. Guy doesn't have one post move, so he's not a post player. He's probably more of a small forward than a post player. But the guy doesn't have one post move. He's been in the NBA a fucking decade, not one. But anyways, I digress. But that's just fucking the NBA today, man.
Yeah,
You can't call guys point guards. Can't call guys 7-footers. I don't fucking understand it, Bogues. I don't. But it is what it is.
And just a quick circle back, just so we can get your pick. I'm 4-2 for Warriors in the SAC series. What do you got from this point forward?
Yeah, I got Golden State 4-3.
4-3, okay. Denver Mini, that one doesn't really matter. We don't have to get into that one because it's better. What do you have in this Memphis Lakers? What are you finishing that off as?
I've got
4-3.
I had 4-2. What's the series now, Bogues?
So it's 2-1 Lakers with Game 4 in LA.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say, you know what? I'm gonna go. Oh, man, this is tough because the Lakers you can't fucking count on either. But they're busting their. I would say Lakers 4-3. I think the Lakers are gonna win the series.
Okay, I'm going to stay with Memphis at 4-3. We'll see how that one goes. I think Morant's going to lift a little bit because he's got no choice. Phoenix Clippers,
sure.
As you said, tantalizing series pre the injury to Kawhi. I think this was going to be a great series, great back and forth. But unfortunately, it's currently 3-1. I had this one for 4-2 for the Phoenix anyway, pre the series, pre it starting. But I think there's some holes in Phoenix, first and foremost. I think they grind down to a lot of isolation basketball. They have, and that's not a bad thing when you've got Devin Booker and KD, but I just think that steady diet of that could get you in trouble. But Kawhi looks to be done, bro. He looks to be done. There hasn't been a lot of mail about announcing it, but they said his knee has severely swollen since that game 2 where he played through it. He's had knee issues in the past. That's a huge out. Paul George, they haven't really given a definitive answer, but everything I've heard is he's out for at least the first round of the playoffs. They are down 3-1. It's a shame because this could have been a historic series. I've enjoyed watching this series for the most part, just the back and forth. And I've enjoyed the revamped Russell Westbrook, bro. I think he has proven to a lot of people that he can still play the game in the right system. And, the Lakers thing was just horrible for him. He does need the ball in his hands, but in this series, bro, he's 26 points, 7.5 rebounds, 7.25 assists, 9 for 22 from 3. So respectable there. And I have liked seeing that revamp story for Russ. But yeah, I think this one's over. I think it's going to go 4-1. They're going back to Phoenix now. I just can't see Phoenix letting this slip. They'll get some rest and they'll move on. But a disappointing end to this series, in my opinion, with the injuries.
Yeah, there's been a lot of negative press to Kawhi getting hurt. Stephen A. calling him the worst superstar that the game's ever seen. And like as far as a legit superstar, and just because with all the sitting out injury, all the antics with getting himself out of cities to other cities, and just not really, not living up to the name or the hype. I mean, obviously I don't get involved in any of that bullshit, but I mean that there is a lot of talk there. I mean, Kawhi, for all the, they had to move moons to get Paul George and Kawhi, in the same team. And, they did a great job sort of assembling that roster. And it just sort of, just the luck of the NBA. Look, they did everything that they could all year to rest those guys, make sure they're all right. Of course, there's all talk about what's right. Should they rest them? Should they not? And it all comes down to the playoffs. It all comes down to our guys healthy in the playoffs. And that's it. And you could do whatever you want during the season, but it's been, it's obviously a rough ride for them. I expected this to be an unbelievable series. And watching, Durant and Booker do their thing, Chris Paul has been really good at times. Ayton has been, making that little short roll jumper and, making passes and things have been good. I'll tell you what, who's been really fun to watch is Torrey Craig. Guy's been
former
making
NBL
shots
player.
consistently. Really? Didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, played over here.
Played well, man. It's been great to watch. And, Terrence Mann has been good to watch. And Eric Gordon has had some great games. Russell Westbrook, like you said, has been outstanding. And look, it is what it is. The guy puts his head down and goes hard. People might not like the way he plays. Some people might like the way he plays. I don't think there's any story here. The story is the guy's a basketball player and the guy plays well. Not to copy.
And defensively, he's been good. Defensively, he's played really well.
Yes, he has. Yeah, he doesn't have good feel for the game, Bogues, like making passes and stuff, even though he's a big assist guy. That's one thing I've always thought of him. Like, he'll put his head down, go hard, but like the passes, where and when to throw them, all that. I mean, look, I'm not going to split hairs here. The guy's been phenomenal in the series. He's really, put them sort of, kept them in the series with those injuries. And I'll tell you who's played well too is Norman Powell. He's been fun to watch. And look, I got to give a lot of credit to the Clippers. Like, without those two guys, imagine most NBA teams, you go down the rosters, right? You go down the starting fives. You take the top two players off, any team in the NBA, and imagine them staying in games against a team like Phoenix. It's really hard to do, and those guys have done that, and they've stayed in it. They're not going to win, in my opinion. Obviously, I don't think they're going to win this, but my hat's off to them. They played hard. They're competing. They just don't have enough. They don't have closers. They got good players. That's when in the NBA, Bogues, that's the difference between you're a good NBA player when you're an absolute motherfucker and a closer. Those two guys, they got 2.5 closers on Phoenix. They've got, Durant, Booker, and Paul at some points is really good player, but you need those kind of guys to close out. That's why, Brooklyn's got good players in the team. Bridges, they're fun to watch, Dinwiddie, but those guys aren't closers. They're good players to get you to a certain point, but you need those great players, and that's what Phoenix has. They've got good role players to spread you out, and they got two guys that they can go to, and that could just sort of carry him. And
do you think?
Yeah,
here's a question for you: do you think the current Clippers roster without Kawhi and PG could beat Minnesota in a 7-game series right now?
Could they beat Minnesota? Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so
for sure.
Because you said that, this is the thing: when you load manage in a season. This is where your seed can become important, because if they actually played Kawhi and Paul all season, I have no doubt they'd be probably a top 2-3 seed, right? That's fair to assert.
Sure. Yes.
So then you put yourself in a position that if you do have an injury in the playoffs, I know we like to go the counter argument of like you need to be healthy in the playoffs. What about this argument?
Right.
If you give yourself a good seed, you can buy insurance to be against a bad team. Kawhi's knee swells up. Maybe it's only a 10-day injury. And then he's back for the next round. So there's that argument as well. And it's a lot's a coin flip in these games. So, now the situation is they're not going to get none of them back, and they're playing against they dropped to the 5th seed, and because they load managed, and it's a tough one.
Folks, I want all the medical directors in the NBA to sit down, and I want to have an open forum, and I want them to explain. Because again, I'd rather go to experts, right? And that's what they are. I want them to explain why you need to load manage as much as you do. And with all the stuff that we have in the game today, the travel, the machines, the extra staff, all this stuff.
Home and homes now, right? Like they do
yes.
You go on road trips now, you play 2 games. Yeah.
Everything for the player. And then why in the 80s and the 90s that they didn't load manage? Is it luck? Is it because of all the AAU these kids play growing up now, and they play a lot more games than those guys did, and they've got worse bodies coming into the league that those guys did, even though they have all these trainers and stuff? I don't know. I would like.
Well, the pace is faster. You have to say the pace is faster. The pace is astronomically faster. Yeah. So that's definitely one thing. Could you say it's more physical? I think the athlete's more physical. The rules, you could argue, because I think the 90s was a more physical officiated game, but I definitely think the wear and tear of the sheer speed and velocity of the game today is infinitely greater than it was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, right? So that's one argument you can definitely make.
Bogues, that's a good argument too. And I'm not saying this to be sarcastic for once. I'm not being a sarcastic prick for once in my life. I'm actually want an answer, because I've never really sat down with an expert and asked and talked. And we all have our, theories on it. And I like to discuss it with anybody, but I don't know why. That's actually a really good one. The pace of the game. Even though I never really taken that into account, and I don't know why.
But then you counter that with what you said. There's better shoes. They're not playing in Chuck Taylors. There's better flooring that's softer. There's ice bars. There's masseuse. So maybe it evens out. Who knows? But the game definitely is faster. It's a tough one. But it goes back to my point. It's like this whole all in for load management. Yes, I get it to an extent, but I think this somehow hurts the Clippers because they could have bought a 2-week period of playing a shitty playing team, getting through that series, even if it was a 7-gamer, and then maybe your star and at least PG's back next round potentially, right? Like so. The load management stuff's hurt him, and I think that's the narrative that no one talks about is like, this whole world of we don't care about our seeds, we'll just get through. Your seed matters. For a team like Golden State, your seed could matter now if you can't win a game on the road. Your seed can matter if you're, one of these top teams and you have an injury, right? And that's the thing in the playoffs. You have an injury to one of your star players, like you said, a closer, you can't score late in games.
I mean, 51 games, Bogues, the guy played. Right. Like, and again, I didn't pay attention to them. So I don't know if he had any setbacks in his injury stuff. I don't even know if he started the season on time. To be honest with you, I'm not paying attention to that. But like, imagine if he played 65 games, right? And Paul George played 65. Now, Paul George got hurt at the end of the year, didn't he? I think he did actually get hurt. Mm-hmm. These weren't all load management misses of games, but he misses 26 games. The other guy misses 31. That's a big hit. So you're right. Like seeding does matter. And look, this is just where the NBA is at today, right? You're gonna load manage. No one's ever gonna like say, no, I want to play as many games as possible. That's just superstar wise. That's just not gonna happen. And your medical team's not gonna let that happen. But I think that at some point you got to meet it in the middle. Say, look, we're gonna rest you a certain amount of games, but this tomfuckery of resting guys for 30 games or so. I mean, that's extreme, especially when you're resting your top two and, you rest your top two like that, or maybe you like play one and don't play the other. And instead of like,
they did that.
A lot of times
that's what they were doing. And they did that last season. And this season they've done that and rested both at the same time. It's like, how do you learn how to play together? There's not enough time. We know NBA teams don't practice anymore. And I've been a big advocate of like, I think the Clippers will not win a championship because they just don't have enough reps together. And they just don't. All of a sudden, you take one of those guys out. Now, Eric Gordon or Powell, these guys are feeling good about themselves. They're getting 25 minutes. Then both of them play. They're only getting 13 minutes. Like those things matter for your bench, not so much for the star player, but it's a domino effect of when they're both playing, that's two guys shorter in the rotation that were feeling good about themselves the last 20 games. So, it's a conversation we've had. Bogues? It's tough. I mean, look, I'm more for load management to in the high 60s, low 70s. Like, hey, we've got 4 and 5. We're going to rest you one of these 4 and 5 nights. Get it. Totally get it. But it's like you could see Teron lose frustration at that press conference towards the end of the season when their seeding was going up and down because it's like I'm at the peril of my trainers. They're telling me what to do. I'm a coach. I want to play him, but they're telling load management, and we're saving him for the playoffs. Well, he's got hurt in the playoffs now anyway. So you got no insurance, but we've gone on about this for the whole season, and it's just like it is what it is.
Do you keep those guys, Bogues?
That's the other question I was going to ask. It's like, what do you do if you're Obama? What do you do if you're the Clippers? Are you going to roll the dice again on two guys as your max guys that are load managed to the death and then are still getting hurt? And I'm not judging them getting hurt. I was hurt a lot of my career. Like, I don't want people thinking like, oh, that's hypocritical. No, I'm just saying, do you keep that squad together? I don't think so. I think you're going to probably have to move on from it. It hasn't worked. It's a failed experiment. What are we going into is it year 4 with them next season or 3?
I think 3.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, maybe you roll the dice and then make it, you probably give it to the deadline. Maybe that's best case. I'd say, all right, we're going to roll the dice to the deadline and we're not doing this load management overkill. We're going to manage it nicely. You're going to have a game or two off every now and then. And that's it. We're going to push it and see how we go. We're going to roll the dice on this thing. But other than that, if there's pushback of that, then I would just move the guys and start rebuilding. They've got some good young pieces, Terrence Mann and whatnot, and just maybe keep one of the stars, move the other one, get some young second-tier stars and go on with it. But, the Clippers it's going to be a great case study into the load management for the future, I think, where, everyone expected them to at least nab one championship by now, or at least be in a championship game, and they haven't been close. But moving on from that, let's go to the Eastern Conference. Atlanta, Boston had this at 4-1 pre-series. It's currently at 3-1. Boston just stole game 4 in Atlanta. Celtics just too deep and balanced. They have a lot of weapons. They've done really, really well with just the way they have different guys step up at different moments. Obviously, Tatum and Brown are the two-headed snake for them scoring wise, but Brogdon and White and Marcus Smart, they just got they're deep, talented, smart team. I really enjoy the way they go about it. They've got a lot of toughness about them. That's often not spoken about as much as it should be. They've got some tough guards, and they've got guys that are happy in their roles. Brogdon, White, these guys can come off the bench, can start, can play 30, can play 20. Not too much complaining in that locker room, which is great to see. So currently 3-1, as I said. Trae Young, look, where Atlanta go with him, who knows? There's rumors that they might move him. He's, as of post-game 4, he's 37 for 88 from the field, 10 assists to 4 turnovers a game. I just don't think that gets it done from your star. And, people want to compare him to Steph and all that kind of stuff. And I think he's a light years away from being compared to Steph, in my opinion. I think he's a very talented guard, can get hot, can have those games where he's 40, 50, but defense has a lot left to be desired. That's been exposed in this playoff series like it does in most playoff series. If you don't guard even at an average level, they're going to find you and put you in all the action. They're doing that. And that 37 for 88, he needs to get that up to mid to high 40s to be respectable, and 10 assists to turn it to 4 turnovers. Not horrendous. 2.5 to 1, but it's not great neither, pro. So I think Atlanta going to have some questions in the future. But yeah, this one I had 4-1, currently 3-1. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, same here, Bogues. I mean, look, the Celtics are just that much better team, right? Look, talking about a team that if didn't mess up in the last month of the season or so, they probably would have been the 1 seed. And they play together. They've got players that are just solid. They got two closers on the team in Tatum and Brown. And any type of run that the Atlanta makes, one of those two guys touch it, and it's just a play. They just make a play. And those guys just know how to do it. They're that good. They got great role players. They got, Robert Williams has been playing throughout the whole series. So, that's been a plus for them because they really haven't had him consistently throughout the year because of injury. Brogdon's just doing his thing. They just play. They move the ball. They play well. Derek White has been unbelievable for them the last couple of years since they acquired him last season at the trade deadline. And they just play well. For Atlanta, I'm moving on from Trae Young. I've said that for a while now. I'm just like, look, whatever you want to do, whatever you can get, let's just move on. It's not working. It's wishful thinking to try to get him into the 40s. He's just not, it's sort of like a James Harden situation where you really think, James Harden's an unbelievable shooter, but no, he's not. He's an unbelievable scorer that shoots average percentages, from the 3. And the same thing with Trae. He shoots in the mid-30s. That's what he does. Mid to, maybe a nudge over mid-30s. He's just not consistent like that. And then you factor in that, and then the lack of leadership stuff about being introverted to himself, tough with coaches. Now, I think Quinn Snyder could probably mend the fence a little bit there, but I just think that, look, this team's been together for a little bit. Trae Young's been there for a long time, probably going on 5 years now. And I don't know if I guess that's a long time in today's NBA, but I like Murray. I like Hunter. I like Bogdanovich. Capella does his thing. I'm not a huge Collins fan, but he's okay. Well, I just think they got to move on and just, I'd keep a couple of guys and just try to move on, see what you get from Trae. I'm sure you can get a lot of good stuff as far as, I don't know what you want to do. I mean, this team has been trying to flip something for a while. I guess they got a new GM. They could afford to flip it if they want to and just try to rebuild it. But I like Murray. I like, you can get him for, decent money. Like I said, I like the guys that they have. I just think they got to move on from Young. I think you can move on from Collins, try to get what you can get. I bet you can get a bunch of picks and things for them and just sort of, or a disgruntled veteran. I don't know what you want. Do you try to make a run for Kyrie, with the sign and trade, and you trade, give him Trae Young and something else? I don't know, but yeah, I don't really love how this roster is constructed. I think they got to move on from it. But the Celtics, I think they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. I don't see a team in the East right now, especially if Giannis isn't going to be healthy consistently. I really don't see a team that could stop him in the East, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. They're going to be tough. And Milwaukee banged up right now, but Boston cruising through. So I'm looking forward to seeing them in the next round. I think they cruise through to conference finals, in my opinion. Milwaukee versus Miami had this at 4-2 pre the series, believe it or not, for Milwaukee, because I just thought Miami historically have been pretty grindy versus Milwaukee. They've done a pretty good job against Giannis. And I like that Miami organization as far as preparing for games. So I thought they'd still lose the series, but I thought they'd make it a grind. Since then, Giannis has gotten hurt on a charge play, hurt his back, came down very hard. The series has kind of been bipolar. It's a series of swings at the minute, and we're seeing that. So it's a game one. Miami's still game one with 130 to 117 victory in Milwaukee. They come back and get pummeled. It finished 138 to 122, but the lead was much bigger than that, and garbage time got it a bit closer. And then you go to game three, and Miami win 121 to 99. So in Miami, been real swingy. Middleton leading the charge for the Bucks. He's at 24, 6 and 5, or just under 6 a game. Jimmy Butler averaging 30 and 6 assists. He's been huge. And are you concerned here for Milwaukee at all, Pro? I mean, it all does lie on Giannis and his availability. I've kind of jumped online and tried to find whether we get any answers, but it's for everyone out there, you're not going to find anything for any player that's hurt in the playoffs, because it becomes a chess game. Teams don't want to release stuff. They don't want teams to prepare, or they'll lie about stuff. So unless you know someone close to it, you're not going to really get an answer. But do you think Milwaukee has anything to be concerned about?
Huge concern, Bogues. I think obviously you can get through the series without him. You might even be able to get to this, through the second round without him. Even though Middleton's been playing well, scoring the ball. I hate that fucking term, scoring the ball. It's almost as bad as space and pace. What the fuck else are you going to score with? I hate when coaches say that. You can really score the ball. See what happens when I fucking watch YouTube's Bogues? I pick up bad fucking habits. No, but he scored well, but I don't like how he's scoring. He's over dribble, like he's really forcing it. But look, him and Holiday are sort of the only guys that could really score. Portis could give you some good effort. Grayson Allen, Lopez, what have you. But without your stud, without your real closer and Giannis, it's going to be really hard to win high level games. And like I said, you could probably get through the next series, but I think it's going to be really hard for them to go anything further than that without Giannis. And I don't know the extent of the injury. It's tough. I know there's been a lot of debate about charge calls and what you do with them. And I don't think it was overly dirty what happened to Giannis. It's just one of those things, freak injuries. And it's really unfortunate to see, because you want to see stars in this. But I would definitely say there's something to worry about if I'm Milwaukee. Like I said, long-term in the playoffs. I think, it's just next man up, and Portis is going to have to play a really big role, a big jump in his role. Lopez is going to have to step his game up a little bit. He's been a scorer his whole life, before he got to Milwaukee. Obviously, he had to take a little bit of a backseat. So I think he could score, he could shoot the ball and do this thing, but this is where you got to stay ready as a role player, because you never know. When role players call me when they're frustrated about not playing minutes consistently, I always say, look, the regular season, the playoffs, they're long periods of time. Anything can happen. Guy can get cold, guy can get hurt. You got to be ready physically and mentally. That's why you can't check out, because you never know when your number is going to be called. And this is big for free agency and value in the league, to be able to step up beyond your role when you're asked to. So it'll be interesting to see.
Prime example.
They do.
Duncan Robinson. He's back in the lineup. I don't know if you saw, Pro. Game 3. He had 20 points, 5 for 6 from 3 in 24 minutes. So that goes exactly to what you were just talking about. He's a guy that was in the doghouse for most of the season, hadn't played much, and he played a few garbage games towards the end of the season, and he's back in the rotation. He played 24 minutes last game, 26 before that, and 6 minutes in the first game. So he's found his way. Like you said, next man up mentality. They've had some injuries. Hero was in and out. So that's been really good for Miami. But I mean, that whole charge thing, I don't know who the journalist was saying they need to ban the charge call. Or it's that's called football. It's part of the game. I mean, am I a fan of what the charge circle has brought? That's probably not, because you do have players trying to step out of that circle, which therefore makes you undercut a player. But it also puts an emphasis on your Ja Morants and Giannis's of the world. If you're going to go like a bat out of hell downhill, well, that's a risk you take. So it wasn't. I don't think it was dirty neither. But whoever that person was asking for the charge call, we've already eradicated the travel call and the carry call in the NBA. You want to eradicate another rule call? So absolutely despicable. Like, there's, I'm all good for physicality, but if you're just going to run someone over to score the basketball, that's not a basketball player. The beauty of the game is going around and using your brain. The concern I have for Giannis is, as a guy that's had back injuries, even when you're back fit to play, you're not fit to play. And the way he plays the game, a back injury is the worst injury to have, because he's left, right, he's euroing, he's up and down, he's windmilling, and that's debilitating. If you're back at 80% and he speeds off like even 10%, it can change a lot. So I don't think Milwaukee's in trouble to where I'm panicking, but it's starting to become borderline. This game 4 is the biggest game of their season. Obviously, anyone with half a brain that follows the NBA knows that. But you hope to see Giannis back and see them push, because I think when they're healthy, they're a legitimate championship team, and you don't want to see that taken away, kind of what the Clippers have gone through, not being at full strength. But, I think this is going to go to 7 now, regardless if Giannis is back or not. I think it's going to go 7, and I think Milwaukee will still get it 4-3 if I have to pick today. And I'm banking on Giannis coming back for game 4, 5, 6 or 5, 6, 7. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. And it's terrible to see Oladipo getting hurt again and tearing his patella and being out for the season, man.
A wet spot, right?
I didn't really see it. I just read about it.
I saw it.
I didn't
it's a wet
watch
spot.
That game. I've known him since he was at Indiana. I actually went out to their basketball camp when he was still at Indiana, and spent some time with him out there and sort of talked to him a little bit as I saw him throughout the league, throughout the years. And it's a great dude, man. He works hard. He's a guy that does things the right way. Really puts in a lot of work. Sort of old school mentality, and just one of those guys that just can't stay healthy, but. And it's demoralizing because he's been through so many injuries, so many knee injuries. I don't know if it's the same knee, what have you, but he's been through it. And look, we've all been through those players who've been continuously hurt, and they have to put all that work just to get back. And to see them get hurt again like that is, it's the bad part of the sport that we don't like to see. And you never like to wish that on our worst enemies. So, I hope he sees some light with this, and probably obviously takes the hit here for a little bit, but then gets back on the horse and see if he gets through and go through the pain of the rehab process, man. But tough to see, and it's tough for Miami because now they got Tyler Hero out and him, and it's probably almost going to be impossible for them to really make a jump in the series. But it is what it is, man. It's just the way the game is. So, we'll go forward with it.
Injuries are part of it. All right, next one is Philly and Brooklyn, 4-0 sweep for Philly. Expected to an extent. I mean, I wasn't too high. I think Brooklyn play hard. They had a chance to win a few of these games. I think 2 and 3, was it? I think, if I remember correctly. They had a chance, and they just let it slip. But I think Maxey was huge in this series. I think he was almost their MVP, in my opinion, of this series. As far as clutch buckets go and big shots late, he was 21 points a night, 5.5 rebounds. I feel like Embiid's the same old story. I feel like he's tired himself out chasing that MVP in the regular season. I really do. I think kind of the contra of the load management. I think he really was obviously pushing for that. He had a okay series. He had a really big game in game 2, I think it was, with almost 20 and 20, but not a great series compared to his regular season numbers, and he's broken down with some soreness. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Now they have swept, so they'll get some rest going into the next round. But look, Philly they weren't overwhelmingly dominant in this series, I wouldn't say, as much as it was 4-0, but they had lulls in games, similar to what we're seeing with Denver and Minnesota. But to be expected. I mean, I had this one at 4-1. I thought Brooklyn would at least get one game, but they didn't. They're out in straight sets. But Maxey, I think, is going to come down to being, we know what Harden and Embiid bring, but Maxey's that third of that big three that can have really big nights for him, pro.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. With those, he doesn't have as much experience in the playoffs that an Embiid or a Harden has. But he's very much needed to be that third guy, and that's where we're talking about closers, right? Guys that can handle it. Teams are gonna do the best job ever to try to take the ball out of Embiid and Harden's hands, and to throw multiple players at him, force him to rotate out of it, and then have other people beat you. And they're going to be tough to stop. Now, I know I said that Boston's going to go through the East. There's not a lot of teams, especially if Giannis is going to be injured, or ineffective or not as effective because of the back. But I'll tell you what, they could spread you out if Embiid can come back with a sprained knee. But, I mean, they spread you out pretty well with, hitting you with Embiid, Harden, Maxey, and Tobias Harris, who's a professional scorer. And they're tough. They're tough to stop, and they got good role players. They're tough. I like Doc as a coach, so I think that they're going to be tough to stop. And like you said, Embiid's probably a little bit tired, from the MVP push at the end of the year. So we'll see what happens there. As far as Brooklyn's concerned, I think it's a good way to evaluate their roster, see where they're at. Like you got, obviously Bridges, Johnson, and Dinwiddie are their top three. Then you got a chance to evaluate Dorian Finney-Smith a little bit. Didn't have a great year after the trade, but obviously is a good piece. Royce O'Neal, you got to figure out what you're going to do going forward. Cam Thomas, I thought they had a chance to win a game, like you said, but just, again, not that player that you could just go to. I think Bridges and Johnson, Dinwiddie are all really good complementary players playing off of superstars. I don't think that those guys can carry a good team, a playoff team. And no offense to them, they're good players, but there's just a difference between guys. Like we talk about Maxey, right? Maxey wasn't one of those guys, but he's developed into one of those guys. And it's not for everybody. There's a difference between putting up points and being a guy who can carry a team. And that's the big difference there. So, going forward, but with the Philly, I think they're going to be tough to stop. They will be a tough out. I don't know the bracket, Bogues. So they will have to play, Boston next series?
Yeah,
the
Boston.
winner of Boston.
That's
tough.
They're not getting through Boston. Not in my opinion. We'll do those previews later on in the week, but they're Boston.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. It would have been fun to see them try to get to the conference final, get a little bit of steam, if they win the next series to get to Boston. But yeah, I agree. I think Boston's going to be a really tough out for them.
They are. They're going to be very, very tough. And you forgot to. You left out Ben Simmons, by the way, as part of your Brooklyn reevaluation. Just an FYI for next episode. We don't need to comment on it. Let's move on to New York.
Let's end our streak. Let's end our streak about talking about Ben Simmons.
Okay. I wish him all the best with his rehab. Hopefully he comes back strong. New York, Cleveland. I picked this one as 4-3 New York before the series started. We're currently at, it's 2-1, isn't it, Pro? As we speak. Folks? So New York, Cleveland.
Oh, yeah, New York, Cleveland. It's game. So it's 3-1, right? Because New York won today.
Is it 3-1? Oh, sorry. Yeah, they won this morning. You're right. Yep, correct. I had 3-1 on my sheet, but it is 3-1. It is 3-1. So doesn't look like it's going to go 7, but this is a 90s type grind series. This is physical. It's ugly. It's not fit for TV. They need to put an adult content warning when you watch it because it could put the kids to sleep and bore them to death. But Donovan Mitchell struggled the last couple of games. Brunson's been very key for him, obviously. Like we've spoken so highly about that acquisition by the Knicks. They should be commended for that. Josh Hart, 13 points, 6.7 rebounds, 1.5 steals, and 5 for 9 from 3 for the series. Huge acquisition. We've been very glowing about him. He's been a big key factor for them. Very good defensively. A lot of second chance efforts by him. Does a great job for them. But not a pretty series. Not a series you want to sit down and watch every game 48 minutes for, especially when you come from a Sacramento, one of the Sacramento Golden State game or, something like that. And you go over to that series, or Clippers, Phoenix, you go to that and you're just like, ugh, or yuck, what is going on? But I think this one will end with, I picked the Knicks in 7. They're probably going to do it sooner than that, I think. But it is the Knicks, so you never know. They always have time to choke when it's 3-1, but I don't see them losing the series from here, Pro.
Yeah, I don't see it. It's an ugly series. It really is. Like, And Donovan Mitchell has been scoring, but it's still like shooting 30 from the three, 43 from the field. Garland has been ugly in his game, just like ISO, ISO, ISO. Trying to take tough shots. I don't even know about ISO him, but just taking tough shots, and try to get more out of Mobley. They just really haven't had anyone that's like completely stepped up. I mean, you have a couple of guys scoring 20 plus, but just really hasn't been it for the Knicks. Obviously, it's been dominated by Brunson. Julius Randle has been very underwhelming. I'm not a huge RJ Barrett fan. I think he's skilled, but they just don't have enough shooting. They need that shooting. And, look, Brunson can shoot, obviously. He hasn't shot it well this series, but, Brunson could be a deep ball threat. Of all people, Josh Hart shooting 55 from the three. So it's like the fucking Twilight Zone in that series. But look, it's great to see if New York could pull it out, but I just don't see them, going anything, going much forward than just winning. I don't think they could, really give Milwaukee a series with or without Giannis, but who knows? It's an ugly series, man. It's just pound, 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 tough shot, pound, 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 tough shot. And then just guys just aren't making shots. So, it's just one of those series, like you said, it's not fit for TV.
That's to be expected.
Yeah.
To be expected. They don't really have any. Each team has a couple of stars that can get hot. Brunson, Mitchell, Garland, Randall. But, Randall's kind of grindy for his buckets. Mitchell can be the same. So it was never going to be a pretty series a la the Kings and the Warriors. But we will see how that goes, and the Knicks should take that one down pretty convincingly in game in game 5 or 6. I think they should get it done. All right, moving on from the playoff stuff. Took a little bit longer than expected. Sorry, but we missed last week's thanks to that micro SD. So blame that. Awards: Defensive Player of the Year, Jaren Jackson Jr. Well deserved, pro. Yes or no?
Yeah, no, great. I mean, look, he's been a very good defender all year. He's been solid. Really stepping his game up in that direction. I mean, that puts his team in position to win. I think he's developed into be a high level defender. Definitely well deserved.
Yep, Malcolm Brogdon, sixth man. I think we both agree that was the right decision. One of the best teams in the league. He's come off and played a sensational role.
Yeah, for sure. Brogdon's really played his role. I mean, it's really hard to go from that. I wouldn't call him even close to a superstar when he was on Milwaukee and Indiana, but I mean, he was Indiana's probably number one option when he was there. And to go from there, traded to Boston and being a second unit guy, not a lot of people really take that, embrace a role like that. But played at Virginia, got a chance to meet him, spend some time with him when he was in Vegas for Summer League and, Gergerich's camp. Great guy. If anyone's going to really, embrace that role, it'd be a guy like him. And he's been great for Boston. He's been sensational in that role. So yeah, and another award well deserved. They got another one right.
Yeah, Mike Brown. We both had him as Coach of the Year, well deserved. I think unanimous as well. So much deserved. They're playing good basketball right now. The chance to win. We don't need to get into that one. And just finally, clutch points of the year, pro. I totally forgot they'd even do this one, but De'Aaron Fox, most clutch points in the regular season, 194. Number 2, DeMar DeRozan, 159, and number 3, Jimmy Butler, 151 clutch points. So I think they determined that as, is it under 4 minutes in a close game, I think? Something like that, pro?
4 minutes and under, yes, that's clutch points.
Is it definitely? Or are you just guessing?
I'm guessing it's either under 4, under 5. Hold on. What?
Yeah, 5 minutes, yep. Scored in the last 5 minutes of a game when a team is ahead or behind by less than 5 points. So we were close. You were pretty convincing there, but I know you too well, bro. You're not too convincing. All right, moving on to some news. We'll plow through these ones because we're at an hour already. Mavs fined $750K. NBA has stated their actions undermine the integrity of our sport. They failed our league and fans. Do you agree with the fine? Do you think more should have been done?
I don't really agree with the fine. I think because of fucking all the teams doing it, I do agree with the fact that they should have got fined something because everybody had a different fucking story in the organization talking about it. Like Jay Kidd, when he was interviewed, he was saying something about it. Not like, just like they didn't get their story straight. Everybody should have been huddled in the corner. Look, this is what we're doing. Telling the players, look, this is what we're doing. Everybody has the same story. So like when you ask it, you don't look like you're completely doing it. I don't think they should have been fined, to be honest with you, because every team does it, and they got a chance to get a generational player. You know, I'm not a big. It's the last game of the year. No one gave a fuck. That team was like the Titanic at the end of the year. Like I'm not a big fan of it, but I think how they botched it, as far as like the personnel talking about it and players and everybody was on a different page about it. So yeah, I mean, they should have got fined something, but whatever. It's just hypocritical because why aren't they breaking everybody else's balls for doing it throughout the whole year? But what are you going to do?
I got a solution, like your insurance package for the
ticket
tickets
insurance
that we did a month ago. Yeah, I've got a solution. So let's say I think you lose 10 spots on your pick if you tank. So if the Mavs do get number 10, they swap with whoever's 20, and 20 get rewarded for actually trying to win.
So
or 5 spots or 10 spots.
So you're not going 11 gets 10 and they get 20 and everybody moves down. You're just flopping 10 and 20.
I'm straight swapping it.
Wow.
Because generally someone in 20 is a team that's actually trying to win. And I'm just like, you know what? Let's just roll the dice, coin flip it. 10 goes to like whatever pick you are. Yep. You lose 10 spots from wherever you are. So if you're going to get the first pick, you move to 10. So if you're going to blatantly tank, if it's that blatant, that was ridiculous. It was bad, bro. That shouldn't be allowed. Like, I know every team does it, and it's like, oh, we can do it subtly. Nah, even if you do it subtly from now on, your pick's going down a number of spots.
So it is.
So then all of a sudden,
when H-Bob buys a league to compete with the NBA and he makes you commissioner, this is what you're doing. You're doing the Bogues tank swap. That's your rule.
Well, in the NBA I would, but if I was a brand new league commissioner, I would actually have playoffs for picks. So I would actually have my bottom 10 would play off the number 1 pick.
Huh. Okay.
And I think that's fair because they're all in the bottom tier of the league, bottom 10 teams. Mm-hmm. And they go play maybe an NCAA style. I don't know. Do whatever you want to do, but they play off for that pick. Then they just get the right to it. So it just stops teams from blatantly being bad and resting guys. No, you're going to play off. You're going to play game 83 and 84 are going to be for our pick order, right? We know where the lottery is. Play it off that way because then at least it keeps it competitive. It's
to be honest with
somewhat
you,
what they're doing with the playing.
Bogues, you're right. But I would have fined the Clippers about $28 million for what they did this year. So yeah, you're right. Okay, so it was blatant that they did that. But like the Clippers did that shit all year.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean,
they weren't tanking; they were resting for the playoff. Yeah. But they need to do something about it. But the blatant tanking, I just got no time for. When it's that bad, you got fans paying for these tickets. People actually, people betting on game. Like it's not good in my opinion. All right, moving on. Zion Williamson, Pelicans GM, said a big part is on him. That was in reference to. That was the headline. Zion was never medically cleared to play after he injured his hamstring. For anyone who watched closely, he was clearly out of shape. We saw the photo. He was before a game dressed in street clothes. We can both confirm. Even Pro was like, whoa, that guy's big. So that tells you a lot.
That's tough.
Asked about Zion's availability issues, David Griffin said, I think a big part is on him. I think there is a lot he can do to get better, and he would, I think, tell you that. I think we need to do a better job examining the whole situation top to bottom and a little bit better. This is, I think, the smoke's starting, Pro. I'm not sure how you read into this, but this is the first time the Pelicans have actively, I wouldn't say it's a huge pushback, but they've actually gone contra Zion publicly to an extent and actually put it on him. So I think the messaging around Zion wanted to play, but the team didn't let him. That's from Team Zion and his camp, so he doesn't get public flack. It was clear as day he couldn't play. He was well over 300 pounds, carrying an injury. Pelicans couldn't play him. But this is the start. We haven't seen this historically with the Pelicans, where they've actually actively came out and publicly made comment about him in fear of him leaving and whatnot. They've locked him up in a long-term contract. But keep an eye on these people. I think in the next year or two, there could be a high chance Zion is out of there. And I'm for it. I've been big on it. I just don't think he fits with what they're trying to rebuild there. He's a once in a generation athlete specimen, like just unbelievable. Great player when he's out there, but watching them in the playoffs too, bro, they had two different styles of play within the same team. They had a run and gun lineup that was amazing to watch, long, athletic run and gun. And then their CJ Valanciunas lineup was Cleveland, New York series-esque. It was amazing to watch the disparity of styles within the same team. And I think they need to go, that run and gun style. And I think Zion fits that, but he's just never healthy. So I don't know how you feel, but reading between the lines, bro, I think that the fact that they've commented publicly, they're starting to get a bit of bones about him to say, we're going to start pushing back against our star, knowing that this could backfire, but they probably don't really, I would say, probably not overly worried about the backfiring long term, bro.
You know what, Bogues? Like, as a professional athlete, as someone who's trying to be a great player, right? He's not a great player yet, but he's trying to be, and he's trying to get to there. Like, you gotta take some ownership about how you approach the game. And he's just not. He's literally stealing his money. Coming from someone who's a fat fuck myself, you gotta think about it at night. Do I crush 8 bowls of cereal after I worked out today? Or do I just go to sleep hungry? And look, he's got to take ownership for this. I agree with them. Look, this isn't, I always take I take the mantra, I take the stance for every player that I've ever worked with. I will have your back up and down until you give me a reason not to. And I'm sorry, he's not in shape. He's never been in shape. He's been in shape maybe one time in his career. All right. He's got to take ownership and be like, look, if I want to be a great player, because I don't think he impacts winning at all. I think he puts up great numbers, and I think he's really hard to stop statistically. But I think he doesn't really shoot it. He can't really go by it handling wise. He's a load to handle inside. He's like Shaq for sure at 6 foot, whatever he is, 6'6", 6'7", whatever he is. But he's got to take ownership as a pro, as someone who, it's not everyone else's fault, dude. You got to take ownership of this diet, because that's why most fat guys never become skinny in this league, because they're just soft mentally, where, look, I'm soft for food too, obviously. But it's just he's got to take ownership. He wants to be a great player, says all these things, all the right things. And he's a great kid. He's a great kid. He's not a bad guy. He's not an asshole. He's not any of that. You watch him in interviews. You watch him on the bench. He's a great teammate, great guy. But he needs to take ownership of this shit and say no more. You know how we talk about Ja Morant, about the gun shit and all that stuff? He's got to take ownership of that. Well, that's his gun stuff. That's the stuff that he's got to take ownership of and say, look, I got to get people around me that are going to fucking motivate me on top of myself. It's 85% him. Right, 90% him. And then the enablers that take him to fucking In-N-Out Burger at 2 a.m, you don't need those guys. Fucking get your diet under control, dude. Because if you want to be a great player, you're just going to be some fat fucking player that gets out of the league because of injury issues, because you can't stay in shape and you're just fucking overweight. Because you're a great kid, you're marketable, you could be a really good player, but you've been hurt every fucking year of your career. Why? Because you're over fucking weight. And it's a shame. It really is. Because he's got everything. He's got everything, but he can't get that diet under control. Bring him to a fat camp, fucking lock the cupboards at night, whatever the fuck you got to do. All right? Put him in that.
It is hard too, bro. Being in an NBA locker room, as you know, There's food everywhere. Yeah. There is food every corner you turn. There's a buffet there, and there's a fruit plate, and there's chips, and then there's chocolates, and then there's smoothies, and then you get on the plane, it's the same shit, and you're just like,
I'm gonna make this easy for the sound. I'm gonna make this easy for the sound guy, because I think this is gonna make social media. Here's what you do, okay? 22 and a half hours a day, you put him in the Silence of the Lambs fucking straitjacket, and you just wheel him around. You let him out in practice, and you put him back in the fucking Silence of the Lambs fucking straitjacket. That's the only way he's going to lose weight. Just keep him away from food. Forget about it. He's in the straitjacket for 22 and a half hours a day. That's the only way it's going to happen. And if they fucking do that, I want
and look, this isn't coming from a bad place. You want him to be in shape. You want him to be, and pro, for everyone who doesn't know, before you accuse pro of fat shaming, Google a photo of Mike Procopio. So I think he's very well.
I'm at 260.
Served
I'm
to speak on this.
260.
I could speak on this topic.
I could speak on it. I could speak on it. That's. I'm telling you, they called your fucking name. Frosted Flakes at 2 a.m. calls my fucking name. Put him in the straitjacket. I'm telling you, you the guy.
Get it right, Zion. Get it right.
Yeah, get it right.
Yeah, I mean it's a shame,
Yeah.
and we'll see. But if I'm the GM, I honestly look to move him, and if he flourishes somewhere else, so be it. Because I think they're starting to build a squad with the length and athleticism they have in that lineup. So we'll see how that goes. This one was quick. We don't have to touch on these too much because we've got to plow through them. But Dame Lillard was on record saying he's not interested in a route of drafting youth. He doesn't want to tank and go into the young rebuild OKC type thing. Fair enough. So that first time he's been vocal about get me out of here if that's going to be what you want to do. He's never really been vocal about wanting to leave. This, I think, plays into he has been very pro Draymond Green on social media, even with the kick. He made some posts about it, and I think he wants Draymond Green in Portland. And I think this is probably, for those watching or listening, I think Portland have a decision make. Do we want to rebuild? Then Dame's out of here. But Dame said, he loves DG, and Draymond Green has a team option that he can opt out of, player option, sorry, they can opt out of. I would not be surprised if Portland bring Draymond Green in on a big contract to try and keep Dame Lillard. That's kind of my theory, Pro.
Yeah, I mean, it fits what's going on for sure. But to me, if I'm them, I think, look, Draymond fits in certain spots where he's got a lot of value. I do think Portland's one of those teams. And I think if Houston gets the French kid, if he gets Victor, that I would want to bring in Draymond Green to clean some shit up there to get, A, some guy who's going to protect him, and B, a guy who's going to clean some of the young stuff up. But we'll go back to Portland. Yeah, I could sort of see that for sure. But if I'm them, that's not really getting you over the hump. Like, I think that you'll be better for sure. But what is that? What is that? Does that put you in the plan? Does that put you?
My argument is you're not getting them over the hump.
Yeah.
No, I don't think Draymond's getting to a championship. Do you want to keep Dame?
Yeah.
That's the question it comes down to for Portland. If you want to keep Dame Lillard, you got to bring in a Draymond Green free agency and probably another substar and show Dame that you're interested about continuing to try to win, or you draft youth and he leaves. That's kind of why I think this could happen.
Yeah, I'm predicting that Dame's going to end up in Philly for Maxey and something else, Tobias Harris and something else. That's what I'm predicting, because I think that obviously Philly probably not going to have enough to win a championship, whatnot. They're going to want to make some moves. And the one of two moves that they can make is dealing for Dame. And I think for Portland, like, you could either go totally young and trade him to a mid-range team or whatever for a bunch of picks, or you can get Maxey, who's a good young player that's not a superstar yet, but on his way to being a really good player. And so you have a bunch of time, and you could build it through any other young player that you have, Simons and whatnot. You could deal Grant, and get something back there. I think they're going to deal him either there, Miami, one of those places. But I think that one of the two places that they'll deal him is that. So I don't know what you do. I think you should deal him, and just like put this thing out of its misery, so to speak. But Draymond Green would be like, if you want to keep Dame, there's not many moves that they can make, and I think that that's one move you could make. I'm not a fan of it. I just think you should deal the guy. I think he's been there a long time. He's been one of the most, I told you, one of the most loyal superstars to his own city. But I just think that it's run its course. Let's not like destroy the relationship here where now like he'll force his way out of town. Let's do it where like, all right, Dame, look, you could, let's do this with dignity. We'll dare you to a contender where we can get something good back. You have a chance to win. Everybody's happy. But yeah, that's an interesting deal with the Draymond Green situation with them.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Miles Bridges, 30-game suspension, 20 served. He misses the first 10 of next season. So we're going to touch into that, but that's the announcement there. Nick Nurse taking his hat elsewhere, Pro. He's been fired by the Toronto Raptors. Ime Udoka expected to be a serious candidate in Toronto. Nigerian connection there, Pro.
African connection,
the
yeah.
GM. Not Nigerian?
Yeah, African connection, I said.
Both of them?
Yeah.
African, yeah.
Sure. Like,
I thought
Masai was an African scout to start his career or whatever. But they do have some type of history. I don't know where Udoka was, maybe playing where one of his scouting, when Masai was moving his way up. I think that that's a good hire if I'm a Doka, I'll probably take a matchup.
Gets him out of the US.
Yeah, gets him out of the
Gets
US.
him out of the US too with all
the different age.
with all the bullshit. Although Canada's much more woke with all that stuff too, so you might even cop a hard time there. But that'll be interesting to see. And then just finally, the NBA players voted Trae Young as the most overrated in the league. Rudy Gobert was also up there, but Trae Young, most overrated. That's from the Athletic Pro. So interesting one to note. Let's move on. We're going to plow through these. Dabble, copy bets. The social betting experience where you can copy bets. It's simple. See a bet on your feed you like. Boom, hit that copy bet button. Follow my copy bets and jump into the banner channel. Have a chat. Go on and download the app, the App Store. Have a dabble socially and gamble responsibly. I'm putting a few bets up there, and the good people at Dabble have given a few refunds on them already if one leg of some of the multis that I do not get up. So check that out. Moving on to the NBL and Australia, a little bit of free agency news. Joe Luala-Chul back at Melbourne United for what I hear is a huge number, but good to see some talent back. Mitch Norton, bought out of Perth, has signed in Brisbane. I think this is a really good pickup for Brisbane if you're a Brisbane Bullets fan. Veteran leadership at the guard spot, much needed. I think this will help. Kings have signed Makwach Malawach, really athletic in the NBL 1 right now. Really good kind of up-and-coming guard that we hope to further develop. Todd Blanchfield, bought out by the Wildcats. He's gone to the Hawks. 2024 lottery pick, AJ Johnson, signs with the Illawarra Hawks as well. Pro, do you know much about him out of high school there in the US?
I don't know about him. But I think he's a guy that committed to. He's supposed to go high major college in the United States, and he's going out there. No, I don't know much about him.
Yeah, I don't know much neither, but the Hawks have a good pipeline, obviously, with the Next Star model, with the Ball family and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
So I do have some NBL news. I'll be the first time ever reporting NBL news. So I'm working for the trainer in Dallas. His name's Tim Martin. He's the guy that works out Victor, the French kid. But we've got a couple of guys. We got Ryan Rupert from New Zealand. He's working out with us. He's been good. Good player. Solid, a really good defender. Shots getting better. Great kid. Works hard.
Long.
Yeah, long, really long. And then I've been working out. An agent reached out to me through a friend, listener of the show who works in the NBA. Name is David Okwara, who played in Melbourne.
Yep.
Really good.
Yep.
He's going to test and work out for some NBA teams, like a Luol Deng type, like 6'9", long arms, shots getting better. Really, really good kid. Really enjoyed working with him. So I think he's signed in Perth. So,
signed in Perth.
Yeah,
as declared for the NBA draft. Long athletic. Yep,
so if anybody wants
some NBL news from Pro.
Yeah, if anybody wants NBL draft news, I'm the guy. I can't.
You're the guy.
I'm trying to get you to get me over to Australia to do clinics. I gotta beg fucking Australians to fly over here to work with me. So that's how we're doing it, bud.
You need 8. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. All right, real quick, the NBL salary stuff was released a couple of weeks ago. This is total spends, not cap spends. So total spends. So this is not what the cap is, because there's obviously some provisions around marquee. So if a marquee's paid $700K, it only hits your cap for $250. So this is the whole number of spends each team have made. Adelaide 36ers, not making the playoffs again, spent the most in NBL 22, $2.92 million, if you don't mind, on their total spend. Southeast Melbourne Phoenix were at $2.85 million, Perth Wildcats 2.64, Sydney Kings right in the middle, 2.40, Melbourne United 2.39, Brisbane Bullets 2.35, Hawks 2.26, Jack Jumpers 2.05, New Zealand Breakers 1.80, Cairns Taipans 1.65. Great job by the Cairns Taipans, lowest spending team, and then still made the top 4. Keep in mind the teams like the Phoenix, I think Melbourne United, a few other teams with a lot of injuries, that helps their number, because if there's injuries in our league, Pro, it comes off your total spend or at least hitting your cap. So this is the total spend, and there's obviously bonuses loaded in that as well. So the Kings winning the championship, always rumored to be buying a championship, basically 4th, 5th with Melbourne United in the middle. The league average was 2.33. So just something to note there. A few little gripes I have with Australian Basketball Pro.
Let's do it.
We have, well, not gripes, it's news. So the Basketball Australia have made the decision to deny the player at question, the male from competing in the female league in Victoria. So that's been denied by Basketball Australia. There was an expert panel, Pro. The expert panel adjudicated that they're going to deny this from happening. I'm scratching my head as to why we need an expert panel for that, Pro, but that's a story for another day. There was a bit of a word sandwich from or word salad, I've been told. I like to use sandwiches because it's different, but word salad from Basketball Australia around their statement, but they have denied it. But this is what I want to talk about. I think it was the Nationals, under 18 Nationals were up in Queensland over the last couple of weeks. So per the way it works here is you play for your local club. If you get good enough, then you represent your local area. And then if you get good enough, you represent your state. Right. You then go to a national championships and represent that whole state. So that was in Queensland. I've heard, or not heard, I was told, and it's factual because I've got the videos I posted on my social media. Basketball Australia has instituted a policy where there is no noise to be made during free throws, Pro. No noise to be made. Meaning that if an opposition team fans or parents make any noise during a free throw of an opposition team, they will get a warning for unsportsmanlike behaviour, which then can result in a technical foul. Number of things why this is an absolute shit show of a decision by Basketball Australia. Number one, because you can put Trojan horses in the crowd. So I'm a fan of Queensland. We're playing Victoria. I'm going to dress as a Victorian and boo the Queenslanders. Yeah. And then I'm going to get my team at a tech and a tech and a tech. Number two, it's just that bubble wrap generation that we're continuing to not have any kind of adversity or conflict for our kids. What do you think happens when they go overseas? Pro, you're involved in high school sports and college sports. It's a great atmosphere. Yeah. You know when you go on the road, you're going to get booed. Mm-hmm. And this is just a horrendous over-governing decision by bedwetters, and it needs to be called out. It's horrific. I remember going from Australia, and I mentioned this on socials, going from Australia, where you go from local leagues, not a lot of fans, to go on and play in Europe for my junior. This is a under-19 junior tournament. They've got flags, they've got drums, they've got they've got a trumpet in the crowd. They're lighting and you're just like, oh my goodness, like this is somewhat confronting and different. So now you're going from everyone please be quiet for the guy shooting or girl shooting the free throw to get off a plane and try to compete for your country, and you're basically getting spat on, which I don't condone, but that kind of mentality of like fans want, you're going to play bad against us, boo, we hate you. How are you going to prepare kids for that? How are you going to prepare 16, 17-year-old kids to make that jump to go to college where they're printing out your face on billboards and making fun of you? And I like it. I'm all for it as long as it's not abusive and physical, and they're not inciting violence or going too far. Like if your mother's passed away or something, that's too far. But if they're making fun puns about you, they've dug up a past about an old girlfriend, whatever it is, old boyfriend, I'm all for it. And for Basketball Australia to do this, Pro, I think a part of your development is dealing with distractions, dealing with a shit show, dealing with a fan that's talking shit to you, dealing with someone with those clappers while you're shooting free throws. You get to the NBL and the announcer's like, does anyone want free cheeseburgers? Because if they miss 2 free throws in a row, they get free the whole crowd gets free cheeseburgers. Yeah. So everyone's going bonkers, and you're like, what the hell are we doing? So Basketball Australia, get your head out of your ass, get rid of that rule, stop over-governing things that you don't need to govern. No. It's just a shit show, Pro, and I'm kind of really taken aback by that. I was very, very concerning when I heard it. I've had numerous coaches reach out to me quietly that don't want to be mentioned, that were in that tournament in different age groups or different squads, and they all said the same thing, that we've got formal warnings because a parent made a noise during a free throw, and ridiculous, Bro. Yeah,
they say D'Angelo Russell endorses a rule where if you call a player a point guard while at the free throw line, you get banned for life from any Basketball Australia event. So do not, whatever you do not call a fucking player a point guard. Also, like overseas, like, they throw batteries at you and light pennies and throw them. You got, like, I remember when I was in Europe for the Reebok Euro Camp, an Italian league playoff game, they had guys with semi-automatics in the fucking stands. You got guys that are just giving people the arm and finger and swearing and spitting. It's crazy. So yeah, like, come on, man. I mean, first of all, you'll never be able to govern that rule, or you never be able to do anything with that rule. Like you said.
They are, because there's a video I've posted, and the an athlete gets a free throw, gets the ball from the referee, and you hear everyone yelling, shh, shh, shh. Australians are generally a very rule-following, obedient society, but right. Good people break bad rules, Bro, and this one's one that definitely needs to be broken. I hope BA wipes this away because it's just it's absolutely horrendous, and it's just not preparing you for the next phase. I mean, explain to people in the US high school sports and how passionate they are, especially small town high school sports.
Oh my God, they're screaming, swearing, putting up like pictures of girls with like bikinis on to get like at the free throw line, like behind the basket,
and generally getting 1,000, 1,500 people to some of these games.
Folks, there's even a high school, you can look it up. I don't know if it's high school or college Division III. When someone's at the free throw line, they had a fan base where they faked a pregnancy and they had a little kid come out of the pregnancy and they delivered a little kid while somebody's at the free throw line. Give me a fucking break. I mean, come on, yeah, it's crazy. United States, especially in those small towns, Indiana, Maine, Texas, it's tough, man. Yeah, it's crazy, but
like I said, as long as there's no direct violence or swearing or go for all your life, make the noise, do flips, there's girls that have lifted their tops up, there's boys that have lifted their tops up, there's all kinds of shit going on in there, and I'm all for it. I love it. I think of the raw, you want that, and then when you go back to your home, guess what? I want my home fans to do the same thing. I think it's a great environment.
No doubt.
Basketball Australia, pull your finger out and just concentrate on getting basketball better. All right, moving on. Useful or useless stats, bro. First one, we're just going to go useful, useless real quick. We don't need to get into these. Mm-hmm. Kings ticket prices, pro. Priciest playoff ticket prices ever tracked online, excluding the NBA Finals, so any playoff game. The get-in price for Game 1 of the Sacramento Kings game was $379 just to get in the building, pro. Useful or useless?
Damn. Fucking... I think that's both useful and useless at the same time, Bogues. First of all, who the fuck would pay $379 if you could watch that shit at home? And second, that's a fucking lot of money, man. That's a lot of money. I don't know. I guess it's useful to see, I mean, that's an expensive ticket, man. So I guess it's, it's cool to see that the demand for tickets in the playoffs is that much, where a game in the first round has that type of value, in my opinion. What do you think?
16, 17 years without a playoff berth plays into that, pro. So I think it's great. I think it's useful. It's unbelievable that this whole argument of small markets can't do that well. They've proved making the playoffs is good. And I love the story with Sac, but I'll love to see that continue next season, the season after. I think we'll see it fester out. They just haven't experienced winning enough to just get used to it like they do in some other cities. Next one, last two guards to average 30-plus points a game on less than 1-3 a game in a season, pro. Who you got? Who'd you guess?
Two guards that average 30 and what, Bogues?
30-plus on less than 1-3 per game in a season.
Oh, wow. 30 a game. During the season, did DeMar DeRozan? No.
Close.
Close?
No, not DeMar.
Okay, it's not DeMar. I'm going to guess it's 30 points, NBA season. I don't know. Guard, Clyde Drexler.
You'll kick yourself when you don't get it.
Clyde Drexler and fucking Michael Jordan. I don't know. Who do you got?
Michael Jordan is one. Correct. Michael Jordan is one. The other one's SGA. Did it this season.
Oh, nice.
So pretty impressive. Yeah. Less than 1-3 per game made. 30 points is 30 the old-fashioned way, pro, but that's useful, useless, useful for me because it's pretty impressive to score that much and make it grindy. What do you got?
Useful, same thing.
Yep. Okay, the Raptors are the only team to have 2 coaches of the year in the last 6 years that both got fired. Useful or useless?
Useful. Don't coach in fucking Toronto. Jesus,
do you remember the photo of Dwayne Casey getting the trophy? If you haven't, look that shit up. He gets the Coach of the Year trophy. He's angry as fuck in that trophy. He's holding the trophy. He's so angry. So he must have been. He knew, obviously.
Yeah, he knew.
Hey, Coach, you won Coach of the Year. Congrats. Get your shit out of the office on the way out with your trophy.
Yeah, well,
the photo is unbelievable, man. Look it up. Look up that photo.
There should be like a FedEx package next to it with like shipped to the Detroit Pistons basketball office. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Exactly. They get a discount rate. All right, last one. Touching on our Lakers free throw theme of the last 3 weeks. Most time spent in the bonus in regular season. Who would you have as number one, pro? I'll give you one guess.
I'm going to let you do this. This is your baby. This has been your baby.
The Los Angeles Lakers, 12 minutes and 18 seconds a game spent in the bonus for the Lakers.
Yeah.
Number 2 was interesting, was the T-Wolves, 11 minutes and 52 seconds. The Clippers were third, 11 minutes 49 seconds. And Grizzlies 4, 11:42. And Kings made the 5 in 11:36. Useful or useless?
Useful, man. I mean, it's definitely useful to just show. Again, I never even noticed this, but it does show that, they got a ton of fucking foul calls. So, yeah, I'll say useful.
Useful as well. That is it for Useful and Useless, Pro. Do you have a fact or fake news to send us off? We're not going to do our Q&As because we're cognizant on not hitting the 2-hour mark for some of our listeners that don't like it going too long.
Just one quick one.
What do you have?
The sound guy will get rectified on social media and people will start sticking up for him for not fucking that thing up last week. Fact or fake news?
Fact and cosign. What about your Doritos bag? Free Pro Doritos bag.
Hold on, Bogues.
It's not the Doritos bag fault.
I don't know if the sound guy's going to have to bomb that thing up, but here's my Doritos bag in the background, Bogues, for you.
Or the chewing on ice. That always goes down well.
I do chew on ice a lot. I'm sorry. And there's been times where you text me like, cut the fucking shit with that ice. And I fucking throw it away. Like, great. It's great.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. We've got one back online for you. We'll get back to the Q&As next week. See you all next week.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Let's get rogue.